Okay, good afternoon and welcome to the A-level music support session. Just a few things as we start off. There will be a few bleeps here and there as that's people joining the session. So that should die down quite soon. First thing to do is I just need to check that everyone can hear me. So there should be a raise hand icon in your icon bar. So if you could click on that now, that would be great. Just put into the chat as well that if you do have any problems with audio during the session, the first thing to try is logging out and then logging back into the session. That will usually fix most of the problems. So it looks like most people are fine with that. So I'm just going to lower all the hands there as well. Okay, so the other thing to say is that this session is being recorded and a recording and the slides will be made available on the Pearson Music Community page after the session as well. So if we just move across here, so the agenda for today is to give an overview of the situation, run through the main points of the consultation outcomes, just list through the evidence that you might consider when you're coming up with the teacher assessed grades. There are some things that are still to be confirmed and we'll go through those, and then just go through an idea of what you and your students can be getting on with at this point and when you return to centre. Okay, a couple of people saying that they can't see anything on the screen. There should be some slides. Just try and hopefully correct that. Okay, that looks like it's working now, so that's good. Okay, so to go through an overview of the situation, so the Secretary of State made the announcement on 6th of January that schools will be closed and that GCSEs and A-level exams wouldn't go ahead as planned this summer. Then on the 13th of January, there were letters that went between DfE and Ofqual to outline the process to agree the alternative arrangements for exams in summer 2021. And then that followed on the 15th of January that the consultations on the alternative arrangements on how GCSEs, AS and A-level grades should be awarded in summer 2021 were published, and that closed on the 29th of January. There was also a consultation for vocational and technical qualifications that was released at the same time and closed at the same time as well. So there's a link there through to the consultation page where the outcomes are also published there. And a few days into that consultation as well, JCQ released a notice to centres about NEA. And there's a link there to that notice as well. And that set out that NEA components could be completed outside of the usual controls or supervision that would be in place for those components, and things could be completed outside of the centre and various things like that. So there's details in that notice there about those things as well. Then on the 25th of February, there were the outcomes of the Ofqual consultation that were released. and there's a link through to those outcomes there as well. And on that day as well, Ofqual also released a further consultation, which is on the General Qualifications Alternative Awarding Framework. That's currently open and will close on the 11th of March. And there's a link through to that consultation as well. So that just sets out the details of the framework that will be in place to allow qualifications to be awarded this summer. So that do look at that and give feedback on that consultation as well if you would like. So really to go through the detail of the main points of the consultation outcomes is that the teacher assessed grade will be based on that teachers must assess their students' performance only on what content has been delivered to them to determine the grade. Teachers can use evidence of a student's performance from throughout the course as well. So that's in their whole time of study on that course. And teachers should determine the grades as late in the academic year as possible to enable teaching to continue and allow the delivery of content to continue for the students as well, to give a more informed picture for the teacher assessed grades. The consultation also stated that there should be a broad range of evidence across the taught content to determine the grades should be used. And it also said that heads of centre will have to confirm that students have taught sufficient content to allow progression. So overall, there will be a head of centre declaration when grades are submitted as well. But the heads of centre will have to confirm that students have been taught sufficient content as well. The consultation outcomes also said that students should continue to work on NEA where possible. So obviously that is something that can continue outside of the centre in some cases, and the details there in that JCQ notice as well. It said that this will be marked by teachers and will contribute to the overall grade, but exam boards, it's not requiring exam boards to moderate this as well. And the other thing to say around this is that it should be no easier or harder to achieve a particular grade compared to previous years. At that point, I can see someone asking about grade boundaries and what grade boundaries you're going to use. There's no specific detail around that at this point. There are lots of things and support package type things that will be coming and help you to determine the teacher assessed grade and support you in that way. But at this point, we're not saying to use any particular grade boundaries to inform those decisions. It's at this point, really, I think you should be focusing on the content and delivering that to your students and continue to do that. Do we know when that will be released? I think there was an update that went out to centres last night around summer 2021, and it did have a time scale in there, and the intention from that is to release further information and more support around that by the end of March. Okay. So, as I said, exam boards, the outcome of that did say exam boards will provide a package of support materials to include questions, mark schemes, data around the questions, and exemplar material. So that is something that came out of the consultation outcomes. It's still to be decided what all of that will look like, and what the full package will look like in there as well. Teachers will be able to use the support materials until the deadline for the submission of grades, and also the other important thing that kind of came out of the consultation outcomes was that the use of the support materials isn't compulsory. They will be part of a range of evidence that teachers could use when they're deciding on their teacher assessed grades. Just looking, there's a few comments coming in now, just having a look. Be helpful to have grade boundaries soon, as we have grade and mark work at the moment, not for CAGs but for mocks. So yep, there are the previous grade boundaries for previous years, so 18 and 19, that are available on the website as well, so you can refer to those and look at those to give you an idea of the grade boundaries there. It might be useful to look at the difference between those 2 years as well, and how they compare, and if there's movement in any way. More important to cover all the content, i.e. every set work, or should we ensure pupils fully understand the content that has already been delivered? I mean, from the consultation outcome in this, the emphasis from DfE and Ofqual seems to be that content should continue to be delivered. So that's something that's come out of that from them. And I see that someone saying, will it be new content or from previous exams that we've already had? So again, the Minister suggested that there should be an amount of unfamiliar questions in there, but as I said, it's still to be confirmed the full content around those packages and what that may include. Okay. Okay. Do we know the deadline for submission of grades yet? So again, from DfE and Ofqual, the final deadline to submit the teacher assessed grades is the 18th of June. Your centre may have an earlier date because of quality assurance processes that they will go through in the centre, and see what happens there. Okay, just some more comments there around the grade boundaries, but just continue with the slides as well. So this is more around the quality assurance processes, and some of this is, a lot of this is still to be confirmed, but the consultation outcomes stated that exam boards will work together as far as possible to ensure consistency for internal and external quality assurance. Centre's internal quality assurance arrangements will include consideration of the centre's profile of results in previous years, and also exam boards will put in place external quality assurance checks, and this could include using a sample of centres to review the evidence for one or more subjects as well. Then the results will only be processed after all the external quality assurance processes have gone through, and as I mentioned earlier, there will be a head of centre declaration that will be required when the grades are submitted as well. Students will be able to appeal their grade, and the first thing they should do if they're unhappy would ask their centre to check if there's a procedure or an admin error. If the centre hasn't identified an error and they think that there should be a different grade, they can submit a revised grade with a rationale to the awarding organisation for consideration, and if that rationale is accepted, then a revised grade is issued. And then a student, if no error is sort of identified, and then a student can ask the centre to appeal to the exam board on their behalf. The centre will then submit the student's appeal and provide evidence on which they have made the judgment about the grade as well. And then for A-level this year, the results day will be the 10th of August as well. Okay, just to go through some of the comments around that. Please could Pearson advise which grade boundaries we should use to ensure consistent approach across centres, please. I mean, that's something that I can feed back around that to people within the business. And then if quality assurance from boards will involve sampling, do we need to gather all materials together so that they can be shared at a later stage? So certainly I would, on the evidence that you are using to decide grades, I would certainly be advising to keep records of that and keep that material available just in case there are any appeals that may happen. So yeah. So evidence that you may consider, and again this is set out in documents from DFE here, and so student work produced in response to assessment materials provided by the exam board, including groups of questions, past papers or similar material, such as practice or sample papers. You can consider NEA work, even if this hasn't been fully completed. You can consider a student work that's produced in-centre devised tasks that are intended to reflect the specification, possibly follow the same format as exam board materials. It could be like mock exams or taken over the course of study, and that can include class or homework and work that has been completed whilst working remotely as well. Then you can also include records of students' capability and performance over the course of study in performance-based subjects. So certainly for music, you are likely to have evidence around performances and things like that. And then also you have records of each student's progress and performance over the course of study as well, and that can be used to help inform the teacher assessed grade there as well. Can we use compositional technique work from year 12? I mean, that is something that can help, I think, inform their performance over the course of study, although obviously the compositional techniques, the brief assessing technique, were removed for assessment from the NEA for this academic year. It can also obviously show their learning and progress on the course as well. So is guidance on the third bullet to use evidence that was not completed under exam conditions. So yes, you can include things that weren't completed under exam conditions, but the next slide sort of mentions about factors that you might consider when deciding on the balance of these different sources as well. Obviously, when the evidence was produced, when in the course was that completed and how that reflects their ability at the current point. What students were asked to do, was it consistent with all candidates, and does it really reflect like exam board material as well? And then how the evidence was produced. So was it under exam conditions, or was it produced outside of the centre under no supervision? So you would have to bear in mind the weighting of that in some way when making any decisions on that. As I said, there are some things still to be confirmed. Quality assurance processes are still to be outlined, and there will be further information as soon as possible. The exact content and of the support material and how this will be available isn't confirmed as yet as well. And there will be further information on how to approach NEA components where there's been no meaningful evidence available. There is a bullet point there about if the exams will go ahead for international centres as well. So this is for international centres that are taking A-level or GCSEs that are UK-based qualifications rather than international versions. And actually in the update that went out to centres yesterday, that does say that the same situation will be for international centres and UK centres for these qualifications, so they wouldn't be going ahead. Just again, have a look at some of the questions that have come in here. Can we include work based on Setworks that have been removed? Again, that's going to have some reflection on their learning and how they have worked over the course of study, but again, it's thinking about the weighting of that and how that reflects the specification. In relation to NEA work, are there any plans for either GCSE or A-level performance standards to be modified in response to the limited learning some pupils have been able to achieve due to the lockdown implication on live delivery of instrumental vocal lessons during lockdown? So in terms of that, with NEA work, you would look at that and use the published mark schemes to assess the work. So you would make decisions and look at that around using those descriptors from the level space mark schemes in the specification. Question related to next year, but we need the answer for planning purposes. Please can you clarify whether Courtney Pine set work is for 2022 exam next year? Also, will anything else be changing with Setworks for 2022 entry? Okay, not kind of related to this, but yes, Courtney Pine will be returning as a set work, and that will be for assessment in summer 2022. How that will happen yet hasn't been confirmed, and we will update centres as soon as possible. Can we use ABRSM or similar performance exam results as evidence? That might be something that you would consider as if they've taken that as part or alongside the A-level, and it could help to inform any performance sort of decisions that you're making there. Someone's said exams in international centres would go ahead. No, so the exams in international centres wouldn't be going ahead, so it will be the same situation for UK and international centres there. confirmation that exams have been cancelled in international schools. So there was a bulletin that went out to centres yesterday. If you just bear with me 1 second. And I can post that in the chat. If you just bear with me 1 second. So most of these bulletins will go to exams officers, as they're not subject specific, so they will be going through to exams officers, but they're in this bulletin. If you scroll down to the section, if you've opened it up, under the section it says Department for Education and Off-Call Consultation Outcome for GCSE, AS and A level. Under that it does say we can confirm that UK and international centres will follow the same approach for the UK GCSE and AS/A level qualifications. So there, just to confirm that. So a couple of questions around the Setworks, and as I said, we will be confirming that as soon as possible with centres of what that will be like once Courtney Pine returns in 2022. So not all of the Setworks will be returning. It's Courtney Pine coming back in, but we will confirm what that looks like as soon as possible. Okay, and then really it's what to do for now and when you return to centre. So the real emphasis from Ofqual and DfE on this is to continue to deliver content for the exam components. Teaching should continue to allow the grades to be submitted as late in the year as possible. You should probably consider if you will be using some or all of the support material that will be provided to help inform the grades, depending on what you already have in place. So that's something that you can consider. Also, students should continue with NEA where that's possible. As I said, the JCQ notice allows this to continue outside of the centre and outside of the normal supervised conditions, although it will be recognised that access to resources may prevent that for music and music technology. So it's only where it's possible, but certainly trying to get that completed if you can. And then also planning ahead to consider when you will mark and look at that NEA work to help inform the grades as well, considering any internal deadlines that you have as well. Also things that you can do is read and respond to the consultation that's currently out there on the General Qualifications Alternative Awarding Framework. There's a link there to that. And there's some other draft documents with that there's feedback being asked for as well, that will offer further guidance around the types of evidence and what you could use to inform the teacher assessed grades there. And then on this slide is a link through to the contact portal where you can submit any questions after this if you need to. And there's also a link there through to the Pearson Music community page where a recording and the slides will be posted as well. this point, I'll just go through any questions that have come in. So current year 12s will have Pi next year. Yes, yep. When we will get support material. So it's on the timeline. It's looking like being planned. They should be available by the end of this month. So it's all currently being worked on at the moment. So outside of the situation with Pine, could you clarify the situation with regard to the 12 Setworks moving forward, please? So yeah, so the reduction in Setworks down to 12 was a permanent change. So we did remove those 6 Setworks. We will be returning Courtney Pine, and when we do that, that will be another permanent change to the specification. And as I said, we will confirm what that is as soon as possible. We have to have all this in by June 18th. Easter is in April. To set a market and have it looked at by send to senior management. It's all a bit tight. Yeah, so understand that there are, quite tight time frames on things, especially possibly considering some of the NEA work associated with music. So will any coursework, GCSE, music or music technology be submitted? So the outcome of the consultation said that there's no requirement for exam boards to moderate any of that. Obviously, that's something that's come out of the consultation. We will confirm everything in terms of what you will need to submit as soon as possible. So are you going to send the slides through to us all? So slides are available to download in the materials section of this as well. So if you want to download those, you can do that now. Yeah, this is fairly general information, as you can see, that would be applied to GCSEs as well. Okay, our school has given us Friday 28th of May as an internal deadline for CAGs. So yeah, as I said, centres will probably have their own internal deadlines, and this may be significantly earlier than the 18th of June to allow centres to go through their own internal quality assurance processes. I'm a music teacher in a sixth form college, so moderation won't be possible. I have a tricky student questioning my current grades for him. Moderation help from elsewhere is possible. So I think on that, obviously the mark, the teacher assessed grade that you'll submit will go through internal quality assurance processes, and that they will be confirmed as well. But it will be signed off by the head of centre as well, and I think that's what you've got to sort of go on and say that it's going through quality assurance processes, as well as you will base it on the evidence that you hold, and make sure that you are doing that as well. Submit. I didn't think we were submitting anything. I need confirmation of what to submit. I think I've missed what that refers to. Okay, just a couple of. Refers to coursework. With that, as I said, it's so there's no requirement for examples to moderate that from the consultation, and the full sort of information around what will be required with that will be confirmed as soon as possible. Can centres decide whether briefs are completed or not, please? We haven't started ours yet. Just wondering what that's referring to. If that's referring to composition, then composition doesn't have to be to a brief this year. It can just be a free composition, and I presume students would have started on that at some point already as well. Will concessions be made for current year 11 and 12 for next year, similar to those at the start of this year? Reduced times for performance. That's something that I certainly can't answer at this point, and it would need direction coming from Ofqual in terms of if there could be any changes to specifications and requirements there. But I think that's watch this space and wait to see what may come from Ofqual in terms of anything like that. So a little confused about coursework. Will the exam board be examining, moderating any performances, compositions? So as I said, there's no requirement for that from the Ofqual consultation outcomes, and we'll be confirming everything that teachers and centres need to submit to us as soon as possible. And in terms of when I say submit, that includes just the teacher assessed grade and things like that. But obviously you'll be keeping the evidence that you're basing that grade on as well. But in relation to coursework, you'll be sampling for quality assurance. Is that not similar to moderation? So I mean, there will be a quality assurance process where we will look at samples of evidence from some centres for some subjects, and that could be one or more subjects. So that's going to be part of the quality assurance process, but the full quality assurance process hasn't been confirmed as yet. I'm assuming that when we come to assess our package of evidence for each student, that we will ideally be looking at the normal ratio. So, yeah, I mean, in terms of looking at the evidence that you have and looking at how that weighs up, you would be looking at really the usual kind of weighting of the specification. Yep. Okay. That looks like all the questions you have. Okay, hopefully you found the session useful and that you can go on and start helping your students work towards getting their grades in the summer. So thank you for your time, and I hope you found the session useful.